When I was 21, I had just moved to Texas with a boyfriend. Well, sort of. Long story for another episode. Well, a mutual friend of ours had just gotten a little black poodle, and I became obsessed with the idea of getting a puppy. But my boyfriend said no, so I did what anyone who truly values the relationship would do. I got one anyways. Best decision of my life. That boyfriend did not last for many reasons, but that dog became one of the most significant relationships of my life. Looking back, he saved me. He gave me something to love when I couldn't love myself. He showed me what unconditional love felt like when I was so used to judgment and criticism. He got me outside when my depression was debilitating. He was a constant companion when I was accustomed to loneliness. There were even times when I chose to actually keep my food down because he was watching. He really was my ride or die, always down for the plan, no matter how bad it was. From spontaneous road trips to late night ice cream runs, he was always by my side, tail wagging and ready for adventure. He was my soulmate for 15 years, and when he finally died 2 years ago, I felt like he had passed the baton in a way. Almost as though he waited until I had my first baby and a whole family before he left this realm. I still get emotional when I recount our life together. But the funny thing is, no relationship I've ever had has ever made me feel the way ours did. And I'm not saying better. As much as my husband and my children love me, there's something different with dogs. It's like they tap into a whole different dimension of love. Maybe it's the lack of ego, or judgment, or agenda, or even opinion. Dogs don't care about your flaws or your past mistakes. They don't hold grudges or criticize your choices. They simply love you for who you are, in the purest, most genuine way possible. Maybe it's that no one listens quite as well. A dog's presence is just so grounding, so unwavering. They don't interrupt. They don't offer unsolicited advice. They just listen, creating a space where you feel heard and understood. Well, whatever it is, there's something truly special about the human-dog relationship. Even apart from how they make you feel about yourself, dogs have a lot to teach us about navigating life with presence and flow, too. They remind us to enjoy the simple pleasures, a walk in the park, a game of fetch, a quiet moment of cuddling. They teach us the value of being present, of living in the moment without worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. They show us how to forgive quickly and love deeply, how to find joy in the everyday, how to be resilient in the face of adversity. In many ways, dogs embody the very best qualities that we aspire to have. Their love is a light, guiding us through our darkest times and celebrating with us in our happiest moments. My dog might have been a part of my life for only 15 years, but his impact will last a lifetime. So today we're unfolding a few more life lessons learned from love, loss, and dogs. And I love this type of episode because it's just so conversational, raw, and real. Our convo is definitely not limited to just dogs, but that'll open the gateway for some other pretty deep stuff. So get excited. Our guest is Brianna Madia. She has lived a life of relentless intention, traveling the deserts of the American West in an old Ford van. She made a name for herself on social media with all of her inspiring captions cum essays about bravery, identity, nature, subverting expectations, and of course, her 4 dogs. So 3 key things we will learn are how feeling too much impacts lives and relationships, and how you can embrace your full self without apology. How Brianna's dogs led her to make radical life choices, and what she's learned from her aging dogs about slowing down and living in the moment. And how to navigate relationships with imperfect parents, and how it shapes us. Can we talk about back to school chaos for a second? The kids are getting back into routines, everyone's schedules are crazy, and suddenly you're supposed to have dinner on the table every night like some kind of magician. But want to know what I figured out? Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, which is why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's a huge lifesaver on those busy weeknights. I personally love their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements tailored to my tastes and needs. Plus, I love the kids' snack section where I get these really easy snacks to just keep in the car or throw in our to-go bags or lunch boxes for those of you who need them. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. They only source high quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms. The time that I have gotten back has been incredible. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real about something. Workplace stress is not just part of the job anymore. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal, and it is not sustainable. I used to think that grinding through stress was some kind of badge of honor. Push harder, sleep less, ignore what your body was telling you. And it nearly broke me when I was working for startups. And look, maybe that voice in your head telling you to make a change is right. Maybe you do need to quit your job or completely flip your life. But whether you're making big moves or just trying to survive your current situation, you need tools to handle it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without the guilt, how to trust your intuition instead of second-guessing yourself constantly, how to make better decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists. They've got a 4.9 rating from 1.7 million reviews because it actually works. You can talk to someone from anywhere, and you can switch therapists anytime if it's not the right fit. A vacation won't fix chronic stress, but the right support can help you navigate whatever comes next. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove.
I feel like so many of our relationships, we feel like we have to sacrifice some part of ourselves. And of course, compromise is a part of every relationship, but really understanding that there are people or there are parts of us that just need a little bit of nurturing, a little bit of encouragement to really make you more of like a whole human being, someone who can show up in your full capacity. That includes saying no, drawing boundaries, telling people how you really feel.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
So I love this topic because I had a very transformative relationship with my dog that lived for 15 years. I'm still not over his loss, deciding when to get another dog. It's difficult with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, but I just got a cat to kind of make up for that void.
Yes.
And I gotta say, it's not the same. It's making me want a dog too. I do like this cat, but it's not the same. And so how has your relationships with your dogs influenced personal growth and life decisions? I just love the angle of this book.
So honestly, it's like every single thing that is good about my life has come from following my dog's lead. And it sounds sort of maybe like hyperbole, but I've actually looked back and put it into like a timeline of I was living in Connecticut post college, couldn't afford any one single thing. And yet the first thing I always said I was going to do when I graduated from college was adopt a dog. And so I adopted Bucket, who I still have. I got her when I was 21. She's 13 and a half. And I couldn't afford any sort of dog-friendly apartment. And so I ended up living on my ex-husband's family's sailboat, which sounds very glamorous. It was not. There was no air conditioning, there was no running water. It was hot as all hell. But I did that for her. And I had never lived in anything other than a house. And I had never had to really like work for my day-to-day survival. And I did that for her. And it gave me this passion for life and for figuring things out. And I moved out to Utah because I wanted her to be free and run around and be a dog. And when I moved out there, I adopted my second dog, Dagwood, who's now 12 and a half. And he would chew up my whole apartment. I lived in a studio apartment. He would, I mean, shred the shutters like sawdust all over the couch, go through the trash, destroy everything. And I was like, I love this dog so much, but he is not suited to live in a house, frankly. So I started going out into the desert every weekend as often as I could and finding all of these places where they could just, there was nobody else. We didn't go to national parks. We found dirt roads, we found back roads, and that's where my dogs could just be dogs. And through that, I found this incredible sense of freedom, of sort of being in tune with what is important to dogs, which is the simplest things. A window down, a nice day, a puddle in the middle of the desert. Like, it is just the perspective that I have received from just following my dog's lead in my life is immense. I mean, it's really the only guiding light I think I've had in the last 7 or 8 years since I quit my job. I was just like, I'm just going to follow my dogs. And yeah, I cannot say it has served me wrong.
I look back to my 20s during a period that I had pretty deep depression. And the only reason I went outside was to potty my dog. And so when I look across the span of our life together, man, I was making horrible decisions. And then I would come home and I would have something to care for. And then I was judging myself. And then I'd look at him and he was just unconditional love. I don't know what would have happened to me if I did not have a dog during that time.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember my friend who right after I got divorced, I moved into my friend's house and I had Bucket and Dagwood, which were my first two dogs, but I had just adopted this third dog and she was probably about a year old. Bucket and Dagwood, they laid with me for, I don't know, 9 hours a day in bed. All I would do was sleep and wake up and drink a glass of water and cry and go back to sleep. And I remember one morning after about a few days of living there, Birdie, my youngest, was sort of like, and I was like, you know what? This isn't fair to not give her the life that my other two have had. And so I started going out across the street from where my friend lived and just running on the trail every morning. And it was the only reason I got out of bed. There was really no other reason. And their joy, I at the time was almost numb. Like when you're so depressed and you are so just disassociated, like it wasn't about me anymore because I didn't feel anything. And the only time I ever felt joy was through them, watching them, taking them somewhere, watching them do something silly because I couldn't be alone with myself and being with a creature that just thinks you are the best thing in the whole world. It didn't matter if I had cried for 6 hours in my bed that day and then we got up to go for one little walk. My dogs were like, "You're the best. We love this. This is so awesome. You're so awesome." And it's like when everything in the world is beating you down, to have that truly unconditional love is so unmatched.
I have 2 kids now, a 1 and a 3-year-old, which is why it's just really difficult to convince the husband to get a pet. That's why we got a cat, because we live in the mountains and it would hit winter and I'm like, can you potty Maverick?
Oh, for sure.
I'm like, I don't want to go out there.
No, no.
But now I have kids. And so there was a period of time before we got this cat where I'm like, okay, it just doesn't make sense to get a pet right now. And I need to just lean into certain moments of parenthood, which I was, but I was trying to embrace the mindset. There's just something different about it.
Yeah.
I mean, one's a human and one's not, you know? So I was just trying to get into that mindset of like, okay, what are all the things that Maverick taught me? And children do so much of that same thing of like the present moment. And what I appreciate about my kids right now is that they force you to slow down. I don't think Maverick forced me to slow down. He was just down for whatever I wanted to do. And I love that about him. Like, this, now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. We're sitting at home all day. We're going out on the town. And he was just
Always hyped. Always hyped.
opposite with children. He's like, I want a cookie. You want a cookie? No. I want to go outside. Oh, let's go outside. No. I don't want to.
Yeah, no.
Power struggle with absolutely everything. And so, and now I've got this cat and she's somewhere in between.
Yes, I was going to say, I've heard cats my friend said cats are a little more human in the sense that they have moods. They're a little sort of, whereas like my dogs are kind of consistently ready to party, which is great. But yeah, it also is, I think what's been hi, honey. I think what's been very interesting about having my dogs get older, my 2 oldest ones are 12 and a half and 13 and a half. And yeah, this is the first time in my life where I've experienced sort of like they're ready to go, they're down for all the same stuff, but at the end of the day, like before we leave, like they are curled up just observing and and that's where I found myself becoming very present, because it's not the same as having a couple young dogs running all about and my 2 younger ones are always doing something, and the 2 of them are just, Dagwood was, investigating some little flower and just kind of like they slow down and remind me to slow down. And then my younger ones keep them younger and keep me sort of on my toes. And so it's like we have like a little ecosystem here, like it's truly a pack. Like it truly, truly is a pack. And it's very rewarding, but it's also, it's complicated. It's very hard. In order to make this interview on time, I had to drag my paddleboard with 5 dogs on it up river to make the crossing back so that I was like with the current, not fighting against it. And yeah, I think like, the difference, I don't know how much of a difference there really is between, well, gosh, people are going to be mad at me for saying that, but like between like having human kids, having dogs, I think at the end of the day, we can all really unite on like loving something, building your life around something, planning your days around something, and knowing that it's really hard and it's really complicated. And there's probably poop and puke involved in one way or another, but it's so rewarding. Like, it's like you get out there and you see your dogs or your kids just having a blast and you're like, worth it, hands down, worth it. So, yeah.
As someone with 2 kids now, everyone told me, no, you're going to have kids and you're going to see how offensive it is when somebody says it's the same. And I will say my love for my dog was just as great. I mean, that sound to some people is going to sound horrible, but it's a totally different kind of love, and it's just as deep. I was so bonded with that little creature, and the thing about him is he never triggered me. So there was no moments where, and so it was a lot of him seeing me, feeling seen and unconditionally loved for the first time in my life. And I feel like with children, it has to reflect almost the opposite. When he is being a tiny tyrant, I have to see him and
Yes.
unconditionally love that, even though for some reason,
You can't
absolutely right now,
explain. You
it has to
can't.
be a power struggle.
Yes, totally. Well, I'll never forget. So I was 10 years old when I got my first dog, and I begged my parents, and she's a little Chihuahua, and her name was Lola, and I was 10. She died when I was 29 years old. She lived for 19 years. My parents were married for 19 years. Not those same 19 years, but my mom has said, and will stand by this, that losing Lola was harder than her divorce because there is no animosity. There is no memory you look back on and say, and that's where it all went to hell, or that's why we got into this, that, the other, or that's where things started to go downhill. It's just unconditional love right up until the moment that they're gone. And it is, I completely understood that. Like it's a different kind of love. And I've been married. I have a fiance now, and I still am like, my dogs are the love of my life. Like they are. And like, I mean, they are. They're just, as somebody who has really struggled with the abandonment from humans from the time that I was a teenager, the thing that I have clung to, the thing that has made me the most comforted, the thing that has kept me alive in the darkest times of my life are my dogs. So how could I not say that that is like where my heart lies? That is what keeps me here. That's what gets me out of bed. I mean, it's everything. I think it's, and again, it's that unconditional nature of it, like I love people. There's lots of people in my life that I love, but people have lots of opinions. People like when say, for example, somebody comes to visit me down in the desert. My idea of a great day might not be the same as like a lot of people's, but my dogs are like, hell yeah, dirt road, a puddle, something. It's so simple. It's so easy to make them happy. And I think that when, as human beings, we're just so constantly feeling like we're not enough and we're not doing enough and we're not saying enough and we're not being enough, to have all of these little creatures who are just like, oh, you got out of bed. You're the best person in the whole world. Like, I wish I could prescribe that to every person because it's unmatched. It's hard to describe.
I I get some slack saying it was harder losing my dog than it was losing my dad. But I never lived with my dad. And so there were parts of it that were more difficult because parts of losing my dad because it's a human, and as I grow there's so many things that I'm like, oh, I wish you could have met my children. I wish you could have seen me do this, and I wonder how the version of me now would understand my father, because now the more I learn about myself, the more I see this kinship in us that I just couldn't see because I lost him at 19. But Maverick was so integrated into every single moment of my life. I brought him everywhere. He was there through all the memories. So it was less of the wondering and like, how is my life even going to unfold without him? And I feel like it's funny because I resisted the idea of somebody giving me away at my wedding. I didn't have that happen at my wedding. And I totally see how Maverick brought me right up to having children. I don't know if I could have handled losing him before I had my child. And he died about I'm going to cry already, when my son was.
I'm so glad that he knew your son, though. That's the best.
I know we got a few amazing photos with them, but I wasn't expecting to cry, but I always do. I cry about Maverick.
No,
Like,
I don't know how you put it. I don't know how you put it.
But I remember there were times where I needed guidance, and I love how you talk about just letting your dogs lead the way. And there were times where that happened accidentally, and he would guide me through my transformation or what I needed to do. I'm like, thanks for getting me outside today. And there were other times that I had that awareness to be like, I need to be more like you. And so I'm curious, how do you relate to that leading, like having your dog describe a situation where you're like, I'm doing it the wrong way here. Let me pass the baton.
I mean, I think a lot of times I spend so much time on the road and I spend so much time with them in the car with me. And there's so many times where I'm like stressed because they're starting to whine and we've been on the road for forever and I'm the one driving and I look on the map and I'm like, okay, here's a random dirt road leading to absolutely nowhere. We're going to pull off and I let them out and it's just like they wouldn't know where we were going. I mean, we could be on our way to the Ritz-Carlton, to the Grand Canyon, to anywhere, and they wouldn't know the difference. They wouldn't care. And so like a lot of times throughout my chaotic travels, throughout all of the changing of scenery and the life changes and the people that have come and gone, it's like the simplest little things are just so they force you to be so present, like as if their whole life has been leading up to them arriving on this random dirt road. Like the excitement to just be alive and wake up every day and like the sun is out or the rain is out or it's raining and there's a puddle to play in. Like it's just, and I think with children, it's probably very similar, is that like, zooming in on something. But yeah, I just like, even today, I paddled us across the Colorado River and the water level went up tremendously in the last like 2 weeks or so. And so it's moving a lot quicker. And I'm like frantically paddling. And I'm like, everybody sit down, sit down, sit down, like trying to kind of keep it together. And they're all just like so stoked. And I'm like, you know what? We don't make it over to this beach, we make it to the next one. What do they know the difference? They're just along for the ride. And I think that's where we get so in our own way because we want to believe that we're really in control and we really know what's coming next. Whereas dogs wake up every day and are like, I wonder what's going to happen today. And I feel like that is that feels more safe to me than the human idea of how to plan your life and have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And what are you doing next week? And to me, it's like, what are me and my dogs doing tomorrow? Where can I go find sunshine and a puddle and a place to stay cool when it's 95 degrees? And it's like that to me is the happiest I could ever be because it's just so easy and so simple and so attainable. But yeah, I just feel like it's constant perspective, constant perspective.
To approach life with no agenda would just be wild. But I want to know, you outline a story in your book, and it's the kind of story I need because there's no good reality dating shows on right now. But you talk about getting this shocking email from your estranged ex-husband. Tell me about that and how dog mentality even plays into coping.
So the hardest thing was, yeah, I mean, my father abandoned me and my family when I was 16. And I met my ex-husband when I was 19. And it is Freudian as all hell, but I married my father. I mean, my ex was my father in every way, shape, and form. And I think feeling that betrayal and abandonment and like the rug ripped out sort of feeling was, I mean, it's the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And like, I would be lying if I said that it didn't. I mean, there's a reason that I am so drawn to my dogs, and that's why I feel the safest here.
So you guys were still together and you got an email about infidelity. What details did you have?
So we had just separated, and I got an email from someone who had followed me on Instagram, and said, "Hey, I saw your husband on a dating website." And I thought, there's no way. We'd been together for 11 years and I was gone for about 5 weeks. And I thought we were just separated. And I think in my mind, like nothing was really real at that point. I was like living moment to moment. because I just thought, I mean, we met when I was 19. We separated when I was 30, like a third of my life. And I just felt so lost and confused. And then when I found out that he had just moved on, so, and like to this day, the first woman he met on that dating site, he's married to and has a child with. And so to feel like somebody has just sort of like moved on and forgotten and whatever, and it's like, I understand that humans are really good at compartmentalizing. And I know I wasn't married to a sociopath. So I know that there are feelings and pain and hurt. And so many people just swallow that down. They just shove it down. They move on. They try to compartmentalize it. And so, in that way, I don't envy him at all. At all. You know, you can move on, on the surface. But I think, after we separated, I was very adamant about being alone for at least a year. I mean, until more than a year, until I met the next person I ended up actually dating, because I just felt like, yeah, I didn't trust people. I trust animals more than any human being I've ever met in my whole life. And I just, like, it felt very natural to me to like lean into that in the wake of my divorce, of just being like, these dogs have have known me forever, and my ex-husband abandoned not only me but them. And I know that it's different than when my mom and I were abandoned by my dad, but in the same way, I just felt like everything I did, I wanted to make up them, the loss of this other person that they loved. And one of my dogs, and I wrote about this in my second book, and it was easily the hardest thing that I had to read aloud for my audiobook, but it was that for a very long time, one of my dogs would chase pickup trucks because that's what my ex-husband drove. So it was like the idea of him thinking that my ex was coming back for him. And I felt like I could relate to him a lot in that way, because I know there's been a lot of times where I've wondered if my dad was going to come back for me. And so it's like a weird, I don't know, it's a weird maybe thing to connect, but I just felt like I owed it to my dogs to give them this incredible life that I promised them from the beginning. And it reminded me of my mom. Brady's trying to go under the couch. It reminded me of my mom kind of taking me on all these adventures right after my parents got divorced. And I think she wanted to distract me from the pain of wondering if somebody was coming back. And so, yeah, that was hard. That was really hard.
I just had so many feelings of like, what would, I'm so glad I'm not in a situation where I feel like I'm anywhere close to divorce. It would be so difficult to, it makes my heart go out to my mother who had to deal with that. And I sometimes wonder, I wonder what's harder. I always felt like I was saved from the divorce trauma because it happened so young.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have ever even been together. I have like one memory that I shouldn't even have, way, way, way too young. I think they were separated when I was like less than a year. And, but then when I look across my life, I'm like, a lot of the stereotypes of kids with divorced parents, I went straight through that. And what would be harder, feeling abandoned and wondering if somebody's coming back for you, or never, ever even having that bond with a male? And so you just never know. There's always these, it's just different pains that I guess I believe my soul came here to experience a specific type of thing, chose the parents, and they delivered that right to me to learn to overcome, to learn to be the opposite, to just have that experience. But there's something about feeling responsible for somebody else's experience And even at saying that out loud, it feels like there should be an immediate negation of that. Like, well, you should never be responsible for somebody else's experience. But I don't think that there's any way to not feel that as the caretaker of another being.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I actually, it's interesting that you bring that up because I am writing my third book right now, starting, just getting into it. And an essay that I submitted in my proposal is called All of My Worst Thoughts. And it's all of the things that I have thought would be better than my dad leaving the way he did. So I always used to think maybe it would be easier if he died because that'd be easier to explain as opposed to him just not wanting anything to do with me and having a new wife with two daughters who are my age, who he spends lots of time with all the time. I used to wish that he had left when I was very young so I didn't have these wonderful memories. I used to wish he was a mean drunk. I mean, my father was an alcoholic, but he was silly. He was kind of like Jim Carrey, at least to us. I mean, my mom, obviously, different experience. But I remember feeling so guilty, wishing that, like, God, I wish that there had been holes in the wall. I wish there had been screaming, angry fights so I could be like, fuck you, get good riddance. And all of these different thoughts that I've had, and it just the only conclusion I come to at the end of the day is that, like, you can only experience your own pain. You can empathize, you can be sympathetic, you can listen to other people's, but at the end of the day, when you lay down, the only pain you really know is your own. And so to compare is futile. I mean, there's no point in it, because if my father had died, that'd be a totally different kind of pain. If my father had left before I had any memories, that's a totally different kind of pain, but it's a pain nonetheless. And I was so scared to write about the pain of abandonment from my father because I knew that people had experienced worse. And so I just tried to approach it as like, this is the only experience that I can speak from. And I hope that in some way it gives other people permission to speak of their personal experiences, which might be totally different from mine. But I just wanted to present it as I have these very imperfect thoughts about my childhood and what I went through. And I think we all deserve that because I think we're all, especially when it comes to anything parental related, we revert to being kids. We do. We revert to like the hurt and the feeling of sort of like wishing they're supposed to be Superman. They're supposed to be perfect and they're not. And I think part of growing up is realizing that and coming to terms with it. And like you said earlier, like if your dad was still around, being able to sort of explain that maybe as you've become an adult, you realize how complicated things were, that when you were younger, it seemed simple. And I tried really hard to reinstate a relationship with my father after I got divorced because I remember thinking, if I had a child and I was going through this, Lord knows what that child would have endured, what they would have witnessed, what they would have carried with them for the rest of their life, because I was a fucking mess. I was a mess. And it just made me realize, like, wow, my mom and dad were just like me. Like trying to figure it out. You don't want to hurt people, but at the end of the day, like you have to do what's right for you. And it's the human experience and it's so complicated. And I think shame is what keeps us from each other. It's what keeps my dad from me. I know this for a fact is like people think too much time has passed and the shame is too great to try to like get back in there. But yeah, it's just so complicated being alive, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. it's as complicated as we want it to be.
Very
But
true.
I feel like there is an ease in death because of my spiritual beliefs, really. I love what Ram Dass says. He says that death is like taking off a tight shoe. And there's a lot that I've integrated with my understanding of my relationship with my dad. And there was a time that I sat in the woe is me of, gosh, I wish he could see me now. And then I realized, well, he does. And an energy can never be destroyed. And so it just transforms, which means that any love my dad and I had is still there, but any complications of ego is not. And so I realize that that relationship still exists, and it's in my awareness even more so than if he were to be alive, because I'm not getting in my head about the stupid thing he said to me yesterday or the thing he doesn't understand here. The differences are never at the forefront with him being gone. It's only the similarities. And yes, there's a longing of a specific type of conversation, because I really do believe that my dad and I would be really close right now, which we never really had growing up because we never lived together and he never had custody. We had our outdoorsiness. He introduced me to a lot of things, self-help books, but so much of who I have become was from seeds that he planted. But it makes me wonder how much of losing him cultivated the conditions of watering those seeds, because I had my downward spiral and I had my come up. And then I am also very grateful because he had a lot of trauma from his childhood. And I felt guilty. I held a lot of guilt after he died of like not being the kind of daughter, because I spent a lot of my childhood just not trying to go to his house. You know, I was more comfortable at my home. And so I carried that guilt. But then I saw, instead of placing the blame on myself, realizing I was a child and seeing what was my dad's life experience? What did he come here to learn? And it's just so sometimes death is just the exact scope that you need to see things more clearly. So I wouldn't trade that situation for abandonment. But I also wonder, just like that love that my dad and I created is still there, I wonder if it's possible. I feel like it could be, to still hold on to that with the absence. You still have the absence of his body.
Yeah.
You know, you can take what you want to take.
Yeah. I mean, my therapist has said to me multiple times about both my dad and my ex-husband, just like, it's okay to grieve as though it is the death of somebody, because it is the death of something you knew, and both my ex-husband and my dad are addicts, and that is a disease. I know people struggle with it. My dad is not the first in my family by any means. And so I've witnessed that, and it's crushing to watch like a truly wonderful person devolve into somebody that you don't recognize. But at the end of the day, I have always said it is up to me how I remember. That's all of my whole life. I mean, from 30 back to 0, that is when I had the experiences with my father. That's when I had the experiences with my ex-husband. I would not be sitting here today. I would not have written 2 books. I would not have this property. I would not have all of my dogs. I would not be who I am without those relationships, both the good and the bad. And so ultimately, what am I going to do? Never think about my past ever again? Like, or can I look back and say, didn't exactly end how I thought it was going to? And who knows, my mom has always told me it ain't over till it's over. Uh, but my relationships with those people did not end the way that I saw them ending. And yet, am I really going to just write off everything as having been terrible because it ended terribly? I had a blast. I had a blast in my marriage. We had so much fun. We explored so many things. We moved across the country. We expanded our knowledge of the outdoors and all of this adventures. And, my dad taught me how to be silly, how to not really care. He'd come home the end of every day and he would tell stories about his day at work, and he would give everybody different voices when he was telling the story. And I became a storyteller because of my dad. My dad would come into my room at night and read me books and give everybody different, voices, and so I got so much of my storytelling nature, my extroverted nature, my desire to make people laugh and make people happy. I got that from him. I got my drive to be outside and to push the boundaries from the time that I spent with my ex-husband. And I think that it's okay. And ultimately, it's like, to me, it was the only way to survive, was to say, like, what do I do? Say it's over, therefore my life is over? Or do I say, I went through all of this and here's the stuff that I got out of it? And that's not to say the loss doesn't hurt, but I feel like truly today, sitting here, I can say that what I have gained is more than what I have lost.
A lot of people believe that when the same situation appears in your life multiple times, that's the lesson you came here to overcome.
Mm.
You have distilled a lot of the things that you got from these people, influenced. Do you see a lesson when because you mentioned how your husband, your ex-husband was pretty much your dad. What was the lesson that you had to learn to overcome so that it didn't keep repeating in your life?
I think the biggest lesson was I was constantly, I think, well, subconsciously, my dad couldn't handle me as a teenager. And whether this is true or not, I don't really know. But my mother, with best intentions, told me at a very young age that I was just a lot. I was a lot. I've had lots of opinions from the moment I could speak. And she was like, your dad just couldn't really handle that. It was all fun and games until you were like a person who needed discipline and direction and, whatever. And so I sort of had it in my mind that I was just too much. I was a lot for anybody to handle. So I think I tried to tone myself down. That boiled up in my marriage, and I constantly had this concept in my mind, and it sounds so cliche, but I had this concept in my mind that, like, you're too much. You are too much, as opposed to they are just not enough. And not enough in the sense of, life, but for me. And so I have learned from, my father and my ex-husband that, like, I can't dull myself down at all. Even if it feels like that's the way to be loved, it's not, because you can't be loved if nobody knows who you actually are. You just can't. Like, you can present yourself as something that you're not and gain some sort of superficial love, but it's not going to last. It's not going to last. And I think the biggest thing, and it sounds terrible and it still hurts, I have such a propensity for protecting people who I once loved, even if I haven't seen them or spoken to them in years. But I think at the end of the day, I don't respect my father and I don't respect my ex-husband, and I don't know that I ever did. And I think that it just I need somebody in my life who feels actually present in my life, who doesn't just let me be the loud whatever that I am, who sort of like participates and is like, "Hey, are you sure? Listen, you're a little worked up about that." Like, whereas I felt quite tyrannical for a while because everybody was afraid of me, and I thought that was my fault, like, as if I was, like, the wicked witch of the West. Meanwhile, I'm just a very opinionated woman, and a lot of people struggle with that. And so realizing that, like, just because the way that I inherently am didn't fit the mold for any man in the first whole portion of my life doesn't mean that, I have to change. It just means that I have to change my expectations of what I'm looking for in a partner, what I'm looking for in anyone who's close to me. Um, I think I'm a big believer in the people you surround yourself with can be your family and be more important than your actual family. If they continue to do emotional harm to you, fuck them. I mean, there's members of my family I haven't spoken to in years. I wrote a letter to my grandfather when I was 12 years old. He said something horrible to my mother, and I wrote a letter and I said, basically, go fuck yourself. Haven't spoken to him since. And I don't regret it. Like I do not buy into the idea that just because you're related to somebody or you had an experience with somebody that you owe them your mental health, that you owe them going home for Thanksgiving every year and being berated and being, told to question yourself and your decisions. And it's just like, I do not buy into that. I cut my father out. I've cut out lots of people in my life, and I'm better for it because it leaves room for people who really understand, want to understand, have similar experiences. And that has been so much more enriching to me than some of the more poignant relationships. My father, my ex-husband, like you would think that would be my only sort of source of experience. And it's not. It's like all of the little side things that came with those relationships, the support that came out of the lack of support, as weird as that might sound. But yeah, I don't know. Ask me a question and I can just hours.
Perfect. I see myself so much in that story, the too muchness. I actually have a tentative book that I have been wanting to write, and there's a couple. One of them's going to be called Too Much because I have always been told I am too much.
I'll read it.
And I wonder too, it's when we look at ourselves relationally, like what does too much even mean? Somebody doesn't have the capacity to hold the space for my energy. And so do I need to dim myself down? Or are there some relationships where there's just energy they're not holding? Like my energy will be there anyway. You can put this much in your hand. The rest will fill the rest of the room. How do we show up in that space, I guess? But I'm constantly vacillating between this idea of what does it look like to be in my power, regardless of what the other person can hold? And can I keep my peace without feeling embraced by them because they just can't?
Yes. Yeah. God, that has been one of the biggest things is sort of recognizing that there are people in my life who I can call in certain situations. Like, I think it is totally okay to recognize that you can have lots of people in your life that you love, you care about, and you love spending time with. But certain situations call for certain people. My fiance, I adore him, and I know that he always wants to help if I have a problem. But my personality is such that everything is a problem. Not everything is a problem. But just like if you were here, I'd be like, this fucking thing. Oh, like earlier today, I was like, this paddleboard is driving me nuts, whatever. And my therapist once said to me, you are an emotional dumper where I experience all this stuff and I'm like a tea kettle and it's boiling up and it's boiling up and then the lid blows and I'm like, this is the fucking worst day ever and this is so fucking annoying and blah 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 blah. And then I feel better, but I have just thrown this energy at somebody else. And why is that their responsibility to carry that? And I know now that my fiance is sort of like feels the pressure of it because he's like, this is my job to solve it. He doesn't see it as just me being like, and I've actually come up with a phrase, which has been very helpful, where I want him to know I'm just going to vent for a second. So I literally say, I'm like, I'm just going to bitch for a second. And that's his cue to know, like, I'm not looking for a solution. I'm not asking you to help me out. I'm looking for you to go, yeah, it's as simple as that. And it's sort of recognizing where other people meet certain needs. or where your friendship overlaps in a good way. And yeah, I feel like that has been very much a huge thing that I've taken after getting divorced, was feeling like I had grown up with this one person and for 11 years, evolving from a literal teenager to being 30, I just didn't really know where to apply so much of this like change, this emotional growth. And yeah, I think like identifying relationships that are good for certain things, but not necessarily good for other things doesn't mean they're not worth having in your life. It just means like knowing how to connect with certain people, and how they can connect with you. And I think that that's like a beautiful thing about like getting older and really cultivating true relationships, friendships, whatever it is like recognizing the strengths and weaknesses and not punishing that other person for that, but just sort of like leaning into the places where you know they're going to be great at it. Don't set anybody up for failure. Like, I would never call my brother and be like, "I'm so sad about dad." He'd be like, like but yeah, it's sort of knowing how to communicate with the different people in your life. And I think that like the older you get, the more apparent that becomes. And it's one of the best things that I've found about getting older, is just kind of knowing what's worth talking to who about.
100%. I was just talking about this in the last episode. It's a freeing realization, but not even just for me, for them. Because just like I've been called too much, putting unrealistic expectations, expecting them to be more in some way, is projecting, without ever saying it, projecting this energy that they are not enough. When really, maybe they're just deciding what they want to hold space for. Maybe they have the perfect capacity to be exactly what you need, but they've chosen they don't want to be that, which is perfectly honorable.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I have such a respect for people who are honest. Like I encourage my friends all the time. Like I had a friend up here who was staying with me for like a week, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe like going and camping by myself and taking a night." And I was like, go right now. Go. Get in the car, go." She's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Get in the car and go." Like, please feel that I am the person that you can be like, I gotta go spend a night by myself. Cause that's me. I am and I think that's like the beautiful thing about being that person and being so open about recognizing, like, cause I see it in other people. I'm like very perceptive as somebody who used to sort of like deny my own needs. And so I encourage everybody to just like, you need some time alone. Like, do you want to, are you tired? Do you want to head? And it sounds maybe like overbearing, but like like truly, I feel like I have like pushed people to in my life who I love and care about to really advocate for themselves and to feel like when you are around me, you can tell me what you need, what you don't need, what you don't want, what's benefiting you. If you want to go pitch a tent halfway down my driveway and not talk the rest of the night, like, by all means. Like, I feel like I want people to feel like they can fully be themselves, because I feel like so many of our relationships, we feel like we have to sacrifice some part of ourselves. And of course, compromise is a part of every relationship, but really understanding that there are people, or there are parts of us that just need a little bit of nurturing, a little bit of encouragement to really make you more of like a whole human being, someone who can show up in your full capacity. That includes saying no, drawing boundaries, telling people how you really feel. And it's difficult at first. And so I just try to be that person who sort of almost like jumps the gun and is just like, you should go. Go have a good night, a night by yourself. Go for it, because I know how helpful just a little bit of space is for me. And so, yeah, I just feel like being that encouraging friend, the friend who's like, "No, go off and do it on your own." is has been very, very nice. Dagwood, he's running so fast in his sleep right now.
Yeah,
His paws are on the hardwood floor making all these little noises. I don't know if you can
I can't.
hear.
It's funny though, because I I I can see the evolution of life, and I don't know if there's any way to escape it. It's like we accidentally give up too much of ourselves, and then we figure out how to find ourselves, and then it's like a line in the sand. Nope, these are my boundaries. This is what I am okay with being around. And then, as I mentioned, I'm kind of moving into the state of it's like grandmother energy. You rarely see a grandmother with that much and I'm not old enough to be a grandmother, but but we rarely see an 80-year-old where it's like, nope, I'm just not going to be around that. She's sitting there to fight, despite the fact that all of her children are fighting. She's
Yeah.
just like, oh, connection.
Yeah.
And so I think we move into the, all right, I've defined myself. I know what I like, but now how can I stand in my power despite the chaos around me?
Yep.
But more than that, and it's what you were just talking about. It's how can I be the activator, because there's different roles in relationships, and there's some that instead of just cutting them out, I am seeing it as, all right, well, thank you for shining a light on that shadow that still needs a lot of work, clearly, because I am very triggered by you or whatever it is. And then there's the ones that activate that potential, activate the permission in people to give themselves what they need, to go for that dream that they've been shoving under the rug. And that's what dogs do, bringing it full circle. They activate that. It's like you get up and you look at them. Should we do this? I don't know. And instead of them being like, well, I don't know where we're going to eat for lunch, and I don't have the outfit for that. They're just like, where are we going? Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's that inner potential. It's not any of the shoulds. They're not like, well, should I go to that? No, it's
Yeah.
just what you want. And they look at you with those puppy dog eyes. And there's a reason it's called puppy dog eyes and puppy
Yeah.
love, because it's the unconditional activation of all that you should be.
Yes.
Or not should, all that you desire to be, all that you can be, the potential inside.
Yeah. No, that is truly like 100% is like I know a lot of the stuff that I do, a lot of the places that I go, like today I had to paddle just across the Colorado River, but I had to time it right and paddle really hard and upriver because I'm going against the current to get to this beach across the way. And standing on the shore being like, okay, yeah, the water has really risen in the last week. And if I was trying to take 4 people across that, maybe they'd be like, oh, I don't know, like lots of little whatever. And instead they're just like, mom knows what's up. Like, we're going, we're ready, let's go. And like that sort of energy has given me so much courage to go on these trips. I would never in a million years have driven to Mexico by myself for 6 weeks if I didn't have those dogs in the car with me. There's just no way. It's like I talk to them. They don't talk back, but
They do.
I talk to them. They do. There's like, it's a comfort. It's a constant encouragement. Oh my God, I'm driving down this like dirt road and I don't know where this is going. And I look over and their heads are out the window, like, like we could be going anywhere. Who cares? We're having a good time, and we could turn around at any point. There's nobody in the car being like, well, we're supposed to be going to, da, da, da. They don't know. We could be going to this puddle in the middle of nowhere. And they'd be like, we're here. We made it, and there is just something so comforting about having somebody who is just always up for your level of adventure, whether that is getting out of bed and walking outside or taking a raft down the river. Like everything to them is good enough. And I feel like that is what so many of us are missing in our day to day is somebody or something telling us that like, you're good enough. You're great. You're perfect the way you are. Whether you are living in your van or you have a 6,000 square foot mansion. I don't know, is that the size of mansions? But like that you have a dog who's laying next to you that just thinks you're the best thing in the whole world. And it doesn't matter. And I feel like that is why people love dogs so much. They just reinforce everything positive that you feel about yourself. Whereas you go out into this world and it can really beat you down. It can highlight your negative aspects. It can hone in on something that you don't love about yourself, or in some way that you failed, or whatever it might be. Whereas dogs see only the best, only the best in us. And it's just, I mean, I truly, I don't know what I would do without them. Like whenever I'm away from them, I feel positively aimless. I'm like, what am I don't, who am I supposed to feed? Like, what I don't understand.
You just go give a child a bowl of
Yes,
water.
exactly. I'm like, yeah, just like leave a bowl out for the mouse who
Well,
lives outside my trailer. I've seen his little poops everywhere.
I mentioned about this cat, right? We're a work in progress. Already loving petting her. I really like the immediate feedback of the purr. There's something
Yeah.
really great about that. But I happen to get like the longest haired cat possible. My husband wasn't stoked on it. And I sat him down though. And this is what I think about animals. For anybody that's like, well, I don't know. I just don't have the time. I don't have here are all the downsides. The fact that we get to live with another species in our house. Can we acknowledge the fact that our ancestors domesticated these creatures?
Oh, cool.
Because we look at like, okay, if somebody was living with a tiger, I mean, besides all the Karens that would be like, well, you can't have a tiger in the house and all these downsides, whatever. We've acknowledged that dogs and cats can live in our houses. It's safe. They're not missing out in the wild. So all that's gone. But if we think of having any exotic animal in our house, it's like, whoa, that is so wild and cool. That is what a dog and a cat is. You're bringing a former wild animal into your home. We've domesticated them to the point that they are our best friends. And this cat can just like leap onto a windowsill that's 1 inch wide and just perch there just fine with no running head start. It's magnificent. These dogs just cuddle us when they could tear us to shreds in most cases.
I think about that all the time.
I just think we need to focus on the grandeur of this experience that is endowed to us instead of the fact that we got to potty them outside. So I just want to leave people with that.
Really, I agree. No, I think it's an honor. Like I say it all the time. It is an honor. It is the reason that I have. It is the reason that I am sitting here right now on 9 acres in the middle of nowhere, talking to you from my trailer, having written 2 books, living up here with five. Currently, I have 5 because I'm watching my friend's dog, but 4 dogs. Is because I have just sort of leaned into these are kind of wild animals. And I can embrace that little feral side of them. Like we know when we have to go fit into society, but there is nobody who makes me feel more like I can strip this dress off and go run naked into the wilds than these dogs. And it's because they are this beautiful reminder of like, you can be domesticated and love the finer things in life, but you can also maintain this sense of wild and adventure and like your intrinsic nature of being out here in the wild. And yeah, it's just it's so humbling, and it's such an honor. And I think about it constantly when I am sleeping in a tiny ball in a bed with 4 dogs, and I'm always like, listen, if I kick one of them in the night, they could all just kill me. Easy, but they won't, because we're a pack, and yeah, it's such an honor to live with these animals that see you as equal. Because to me, I'm like, that's the biggest thing, for them to see me as like something that's running alongside of them out in the middle of nowhere. That is the coolest thing in the world, because I want to feel more like them than I want them to feel like me. So yeah.
Well, from one feral creature to another, where is the best place for listeners to find you and your books?
So you can follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, Brianna Madia. Look for lots of dogs and orange and desert and stuff. And then all my book information is on my website, which is briannamadia.com. And also both of my books are available wherever books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all that stuff.
All of the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/356. This week, I want to give you guys a challenge that's not necessarily related to this episode. I want to encourage you to give yourself permission to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Whether you're going through something in this moment, whether there's something that you've been holding on to from childhood, whatever it is that needs space, just move into it. Go right through it and see what it has for you. And when I say see what it has for you, what I used to get caught up on is I would go in with some sort of expectation, waiting for some booming voice to respond to me. When what I've discovered that it looks like now is to just be okay feeling with no expectation. And trust that this process is how you allow yourself to integrate your experience and the emotions to move through your body instead of sitting in them and getting stuck. I am going through a really hard week. Something tragic happened, and I will get through it, and I'm devastated and hopeful, and I'll share more about it later on. Right now, I am processing in my own time. But what this has looked like for me is just giving myself the space to grieve, to ugly cry, to let out those guttural, maternal moans. So just in case you too are going through something, take this as your sign to give yourself permission to just feel the depth of it and trust that this is exactly what you need to integrate and move forward. And as always, reach out to me if you're going through something. I would love to chat. You can find all of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. We have amazing things coming up, including the next round of soul strength activation and a retreat in the beautiful mountains of California at a luxury mansion with an organic chef. It is going to be epic. Reach out to me if you have any questions about those offerings. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.
Hi, welcome to IKEA.
Can you turn back time? I'm sending my baby to college.
We don't do time travel, but we can make sure you find affordable, stylish options they'll love.
Aww.
Also visit our website to see how verified college students with an IKEA family account can receive a one-time use 15% off coupon.
Double
Offer in September 30th, 2025. Valid ID required. Discount apply proportionally across items purchased as shown on receipt. See IKEA-USA.com/ready for college for complete terms.